it's the end of time, and the Mississippi River needs to go dry. The interest is up and the stock market's down, and you're only getting mugged if you go downtown. I live back in the woods, you see, a woman and the kids and the dogs and me. I got a shotgun, a rifle, and a four-wheel drive, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive.
We're back. Thank you for joining us, folks. We're into our second hour of the American Freedom Party report. Please go to our website, which is theamericanfreedomparty.us. And I ask you, please join our political party. Get involved in our 2016 presidential campaign. We're running Ken Givenden, who has a radio show which immediately follows this one. Stay tuned for that here this Sunday. And we have a vice presidential candidate, the indefatigable Bob Whitaker, a patriot extraordinaire of South Carolina, who is our vice presidential candidate. So you'll want to be involved in our presidential campaign. We are going to get on the ballot in as many states as we can with your help. It's easy to join the American Freedom Party. You can find out how to do it at our website. I just remembered Don Deon is our guest. Another great guest that we had from South Africa, and that was Linnell Cutty Vessels. Please forgive me, Linnell, if I mispronounce your name at all, from the Front National of South Africa. And they have done the extraordinary thing of applying to the United Nations Human Rights Commission for recognition of the genocide going on in South Africa and for investigation of it. And amazingly, their application was accepted by the United Nations Human Rights Commission. So they are registered as an NGO, and their case will be heard for the United Nations Human Rights Commission. And what we pledged in the American Freedom Party, Don, is that we will submit our own application to the United Nations Human Rights Commission, demanding that the genocide now going on in South Africa be investigated, condemned, sanctioned against, and
yeah, absolutely. That's very important because November last year there was actually another group, the Transvaal Agricultural Union and AfriForum, that were in fact in Geneva at the UN in one of the forums, talking about the farm murders and the genocide, etc. And it wasn't very long after that that the South African government, ANC, was on there, obviously insulting them and minimizing them, etc., calling them racists. So it's very difficult to be a lone voice, which is what South Africa or these people were at the time. So without a doubt, the support from the American Freedom Party in those venues would be fantastic.
And what we will do, Don, is we are going to shame the folks here in America and in Europe and in Australia, shame those people who have, in a cowardly way, stood by with their hands in their pockets, and even more importantly, shame really the enemies of our people who are in controlling positions in our media, who are deliberately ignoring these stories. So we are going to put out press releases, put out information, and we're going to use this hole in the dike here that we have in the internet. We are going to get the information out to our people by these alternative media means, and thereby embarrass newspapers like the New York Times and the television stations, expose them for the frauds that they are, and thereby put some pressure on our politicians as well.
Absolutely, but we need to remember that the liberal people, they like to have sound bites that they can repeat, which then make them moral people that are on the moral high ground. They don't necessarily want to get involved in too much detail or whys and whats and wheres, because they've got their own lives to carry on. A lot of them are just narcissists. So we also need to empower people with the message, and we have to get the message right to get people to look into it. I think just confronting them, I don't know if it'll make that much of a difference, especially not the United Nations. They are politically correct, subscriptive type of people, so you've got to give them a message that sounds right and work on that. And I've been doing that for about a year now. I've actually been setting up memes and trying to get up sound bites that people can use, especially in day-to-day life when they come across people, when they have these arguments, as people always do, about racism, etc., to actually be able to stand up to that and not be scared of it. And the first thing I would say to people is, you are a racist if you haven't educated yourself as to why you're not.
That's wonderful. And I'll tell you, membership in the American Freedom Party is, as far as I understand it, open only to American citizens. We made Paul Fromm, who's not an American citizen but an extraordinary patriot in Toronto, Canada, we've made him our international advisor, and I think we should expand our roster of international advisors, and someday you may get an invitation, Don, to be an international advisor to our party, because what you're saying, it's remarkable how what you're saying echoes what our presidential candidate Ken Gibbon is saying. You're even using the same term. He's talking about means that can persuade people, that can reach people, and how we have to perfect our art of communication.
Absolutely, and there's just so many ways, and the fact that we're coming to the same places from different countries shows that there's an underlying ideology, there's an underlying thought process taking place which gets to the same destination, and that shows the strength in our case. Our case is right. We just need to carry it across properly.
Right, and bear in mind what Don just said, folks. The series of programs that we ran on this radio show before we began our South African series, we were talking about the revolution going on in nationalist parties of Europe. In France, the Front National, same name as the party in the group in South Africa, the Front National in France, the Progress Party in Norway, the Swiss People's Party in Switzerland, which actually has a share of power now. Don mentioned to me that there's a Patriot Party movement going on in Ireland right now.
Yeah, and there's the UKIP in the UK.
Yes, in every European nation, there is now a nationalist political formation either building or actually knocking on the door of power. Marine Le Pen, who I'm sure is aware of the genocide in South Africa, and I'm sure that she will have to say something. She is the most popular politician in France today, and if a presidential election were held today, she could win that election.
Absolutely, and the people are getting that. The thing is, the moderate conservatives don't generally get up and shout about politics that easily, and it takes a while to move them, but when they do move, then they move. And that's basically what's happening now, is this groundswell taking place, because people are absolutely tired of this killing of our culture, importing all these people from wherever. And so that there's definitely a groundswell. It's just a matter of getting it across properly, because for probably a century now, we've always been silenced with politically correct statements ever since the Communist Party got their manifesto together. And that was deliberately aimed to do that, to silence discussion so we can't talk about it. And you talk to any other person, he just has to say apartheid, and people keep quiet. They're too scared to talk about that subject.
Yes.
And we need to empower people with the right message about apartheid, the right sound bites, etc. I always say to people when they talk to me about apartheid, I said, well, at the moment what's taking place is called forced integration. Forced integration is worse than apartheid because it involves genocide. It involves taking various cultures, various races, forcing them together into an inevitable brown future. And that is out and out genocide, according to the UN definition.
Well, what we will be doing here, exactly mirroring what you just said, Don Deon, the American Freedom Party in the United States will be running hundreds and hundreds of radio spots using our election campaign laws, which give us an opportunity to get on the radio almost for free in as many radio stations as we can reach. We can reach millions of people with memes, as you're calling them, with short messages. One of them we've come up with is diversity equals white genocide. Just 3 words. Diversity equals.
It's interesting. I actually saw a clip from the mainstream media on those posters that you put up in one of the towns in America. And the people had no clue what to do with it. They didn't know how to process that phrase or that statement. And obviously the mass media was very anti it and phrased it negatively, etc. So people responded accordingly. Interesting reaction.
And of course we'll be calling you, Don, to help us work out our memes and to come up with things
absolutely, because it's very difficult to try and cover all of it's a very vast subject, lots that needs to be done, and to try and cover it all in a show or two is very difficult. So apart from the fact that it's not a very nice topic to discuss in the first place.
Well, what we will do is we will use banners, billboards, especially these radio spots, the political voice of our candidates through the political system. We've got some some of the strategies we've got I can't even mention on the air. They're super secret strategies that are guaranteed to work, folks.
Well, the thing that I've found where the problem is, it really is people are tied to their jobs. They don't like discussing racism, and if you change your angle where you start talking about the multinationals, and I worked for 14 years at a top investment bank in London, and every day we had the LBGT messages echoed to us. I don't know if you know what LBGT is.
I think I do.
It's lesbian, gay, black, and transvestite movements,
right?
So-called minorities. So even though very few of those people actually worked at the bank, every day we had this forced down on us. Now why, I don't know, but essentially the bank was constantly funding ventures for these minorities. The connection between multinationals and globalization is the one side of the two-headed monster, the other side being communism. It's something we need to make people aware of as well. Nowadays, in today's society, it's cool to work for a multinational like Google or Apple or whoever the case may be. And you don't realize who you're working for and where the money is going that you're creating for this place. And really, it is corporate slavery that's taking place.
Well, now, this is what you're describing is a structural change that has occurred in our civilization from the days of Retief and Thomas Jefferson, when more than 90% of our people were yeoman farmers, just like the Afrikaner, the Boer farmers. These were very independent people because they, first of all, genetically, they're very independent-minded, but they also raised their own food. They drew their own water. They provided their own heat. They were completely independent. I've heard the story that Boers would say, if I can see the smoke from my neighbor's farm, he's too close.
That's correct, yeah.
The American colonists were the same way, and settlers and pioneers. And now we've shifted over, though. We're in a world now, structurally very different, where most of us are employees, and you used a good phrase, kind of synonymous with slaves, or serfs or servants. We are employees of companies which have this ability to drastically hurt us by firing us.
Absolutely. It goes a lot further, where our personal identity is tied in with that multinational. I am so and so. I work for such and such, and that is who I am.
Right, and my whole future is tied up with, will I advance at this company? Exactly. And of course, the only way I will advance is by making the right impression at company parties, following that LGBTA agenda exactly. And if I step out of line, I'm dumped.
And this is the problem why it's so serious in South Africa, is because of the black empowerment laws or the affirmative action laws, where it's no longer, well, legal in many cases to hire white people. A lot of white people are being replaced. So they've now been originally they were enslaved by multinationals, and now they're being kicked out by these multinationals who are doing the correct thing by hiring black people. In fact, I don't know if you know, in South Africa, even a colored person doesn't even qualify in many cases.
Well, Karen Smith told me yesterday that the South African utility company is about to fire 3,000 white employees and replace them with completely incompetent non-white replacements.
Absolutely, and it's ridiculous. The ANC government has got a policy called cadre deployment, or comrade deployment, and it's an official policy in which they replace workers in all government institutions with members of their political party. Now, that is an out-and-out communist policy. So basically, if you're an ANC member, you will get a job as a policeman, as a nurse, whatever the case may be, in the army, etc., etc. Your qualification or ability to do the job is besides the point. Now, that is where something like your Foreign Affairs spokesperson coming on a fact-finding mission to South Africa is so important. I've said so many times, South Africa needs foreign review. What would an American politician think of this concept of cadre deployment? Just, they don't really understand it. And then the black economic empowerment, there's about 118 different laws and regulations and rules which are keeping whites out of jobs. It keeps whites out of tertiary education, universities and so on. Black people are given preference. So when people, firstly, it's not really mentioned on the international news media, so nobody knows about it. And secondly, when a foreigner does see it, they don't really understand it. That's why I think a one-on-one visit fact-finding mission will actually do a world of good. And there's just so many cases of things that have happened in South Africa that if the foreign diplomats actually had a look at it, they would scratch their head and shake it in amazement at what's actually going on there.
Well, and this is this is such a test for us. You mentioned the fact that our comfort, maybe, the comfort that we've achieved by the creation of our civilization, may be a part of our undoing, is that we're too comfortable to realize how serious our emergency is. And something like South Africa is a way to look into the future and to see, no, folks, if you keep going down this path, this is where you're going to go, and so you better turn around now. And, of course, part of that turnaround is we definitely have to not abandon our kinsmen in South Africa. So, folks, the website that Don Deon, our guest, mentioned, I've got them up on my screen right now. What's the one you would most recommend that our American audience?
Well, for the overseas audience, I would recommend SAFFA.net, SAFFA.net, which is our initiative to get the diaspora of South Africans together to work towards helping those back home. Not necessarily just with donations, but with whatever we can. I've got quite a few methods in which we can help those back home.
Right, I'm reading from the page now. It says, SAFFA.net is the international arm of InSpan NPO. I'll come right back to that after this break, folks.
What will you do without freedom? That's the question the American Freedom Party is asking as a high-tech surveillance state continues to be constructed in the one-time land of liberty. Through methodical gradualism over many years, the United States has been hollowed out economically and morally. The Republican Party is little more than a partner in crime to the open globalism and cultural Marxism of the Democrats. Both parties support the offshoring of American industry and jobs, open borders, endless wars of aggression all over the world, and slavish obedience to Israel and to the banksters and gangsters of Wall Street. The American Freedom Party is guided by the sole principle of supporting what's good for America and Americans. The American Freedom Party rejects the archaic liberal conservative paradigm in favor of an outspoken advocacy of freedom and liberty that rings true to America's traditional values and way of life. The hour is late, but America can yet survive and begin to thrive again if enough Americans act to regain their freedom. The alternative is too bleak to contemplate. Learn more about the American Freedom Party and join us by going to theamericanfreedomparty.us. That's theamericanfreedomparty.us.
The IRS is a private corporation, not a government agency. Income tax is collected by voluntary compliance. To learn to unvolunteer or discontinue volunteering into the IRS, visit escapeharassment.com and immediately implement Strategy 1. The process must be repeated each and every time. Paper, letter, envelope, presentment, etc. Always and forever. Failure equates to acceptance, subsequent results in contract, and you pay or go to jail by your own consent and agreement contract. Avoid recontracting. Visit escapeharassment.com and implement Strategy 1 immediately. Bar lawyers and accountants won't help you. Why wait? Get Strategy 1 and immediately implement it to divorce the IRS today and forever. That's escapeharassment.com Strategy 1 to be free from the IRS. escapeharassment.com.
Dr. Joel Wallach, author of the famous health lecture, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, presents his newest book, Epigenetics. Epigenetics is required reading for the very survival of Americans, and yes, all of humanity. Modern man has bet on the wrong horse to save them from disease and pestilence. The medical system has failed us fearfully. Join the health revolution. Buy Epigenetics today and receive a free membership to purchase all the products that Dr. Joel Wallach formulated at wholesale prices and receive a free CD of Dead Doctors Don't Lie. All this for only $25 plus shipping and handling. Call 888-311-4311. That's 888-311-4311. Again, that's just $25 plus shipping and handling. And you'll receive the new book, Epigenetics, a free membership, and a free CD of Dead Doctors Don't Lie. Call 888-311-4311. That's 888-311-4311.
Something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Thanks for tuning in. Thank you very much every week on Sunday for being our Patriot audience here on the American Freedom Party Report. We're trying to save America, trying to save our people, and we are in a transcendent cause because, as our guest Don Deon pointed out in the previous segment, the similarity of what's going on in every country founded by Europeans is so remarkable. It's so identical that it is proof that we are facing a crisis race-wide. It's in England, it's in the Netherlands, it's in Germany, it's in Spain, it's in Argentina, it's in Australia, it's in Canada, and it's right here in America. We are facing a crisis that leads to our extermination if we don't reverse the course of it. All of our nations are being invaded. The entire third world, 7 billion people, want to live in European nations. This is the process that happened in South Africa. Correct me if I misstate anything, Don. The blacks from all over Africa flooded into South Africa because it was the best place in Africa to live. It was the finest civilization in Africa by far. The most beautiful cities, parks, sanitation, health care, everything in South Africa was the best. And everybody in Africa knew it. And so what did everybody want to do? They wanted to get into South Africa. What does everybody want to do? Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, that's a very telling point that you're making there, because everybody carries on with apartheid as if it equates with the Holocaust. But if you look, there wasn't one single refugee camp on the borders of South Africa during all the apartheid years. There was nobody escaping South Africa, and like you just said, people were struggling to get in. In fact, people were dying to cross the border into South Africa when we still had actual border patrols and border police. People would risk their lives to come and get into South Africa, which was an apartheid country. So that tells you right there, something's not right about what the media have been telling everybody.
Exactly. What's wrong with this picture? That's right. And America is being flooded. Everybody wants to get into America. It appears that every single person in Mexico wants to live instead in the United States. And if they're allowed to do so, they will move here. It appears that every person in India and China wants to live in Canada. They'll move there if they are able to do it. Every single person living in Pakistan appears to want to live in London or Britain, and they're moving there. So this is a one-way invasion. It's not happening to any non-European countries. It's a phenomenon experienced only by European nations. Also, the cultural, the media attack on our values, on our way of life is extraordinary. I learned from Karen Smith yesterday, Don, that a recent action of the black government of South Africa means that requires that all the monuments and cultural sites of the Afrikaners and the South African whites are to be torn down and destroyed.
Well, yes, that's actually one of the Malema, who's one of the opposition parties, and he's more radical and more left than the ANC is, which is quite frightening. He's jumped onto this thing of getting rid of all vestiges of apartheid, i.e. all these statues, etc. And it's got nothing to do with reason or sense or whatever the case may be. It's pure propaganda. It's pure pushing the agenda of himself and his party. And that really is it at the end of the day. It's not about right or wrong or logic. And that is the mistake we always make. We jump onto the agenda that they set, and then we try and address with logic or what's right or what's wrong or with morals. And from the outset, we're on the wrong foot already. It's pure to take as much as you can, as quick as you can.
Hang on to that thought, Don. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Can't keep my eyes from the circling skies. Tongue tied and twisted, just an earthbound escape.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
How did a country founded on freedom and limited government end up with the largest, most intrusive government in world history? The process has been ongoing for a long time, and it won't change as long as the Democrat and Republican parties continue to dominate the political system in the United States. It's time to face some unpleasant facts. Americans used to say, it can't happen here. Well, it can, and it has. America has become unrecognizable. We are living in a dark era where not only freedom is under direct attack, but even truth. The institutions of power and control have essentially merged into one giant organism, one that does not trust or believe in the American people. It's time to break up the Democrat-Republican death grip on power and return America to Americans. It's time to regain our freedom by supporting the American Freedom Party. The American Freedom Party represents the American people and will return our nation to greatness. You can be part of the solution by joining the American Freedom Party for just $25. Send your $25 membership to the American Freedom Party, 9811 West Charleston Boulevard, Suite 2-441, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. Again, that's the American Freedom Party, 9811 West Charleston Boulevard, Suite 2-441, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117.
Free Your Mind returns to Philadelphia April 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2015, with a 3-day conference featuring top-caliber whistleblowers and researchers from across the country who will shed light upon our world's problems and bring forward empowering solutions. To get your tickets and to donate, go to www.freeyourmindconference.com. Free your mind. It's your world. It's your future. Empower yourself.
What will you do without freedom? That's the question the American Freedom Party is asking as a high-tech surveillance state continues to be constructed in the one-time land of liberty. Through methodical gradualism over many years, the United States has been hollowed out economically and morally. The Republican Party is little more than a partner in crime to the open globalism and cultural Marxism of the Democrats. Both parties support the offshoring of American industry and jobs, open borders, endless wars of aggression all over the world, and slavish obedience to Israel and to the banksters and gangsters of Wall Street. The American Freedom Party is guided by the sole principle of supporting what's good for America and Americans. The American Freedom Party rejects the archaic liberal conservative paradigm in favor of an outspoken advocacy of freedom and liberty that rings true to America's traditional values and way of life. The hour is late, but America can yet survive and begin to thrive again if enough Americans act to regain their freedom. The alternative is too bleak to contemplate. Learn more about the American Freedom Party and join us by going to theamericanfreedomparty.us. That's theamericanfreedomparty.us.
There are many water filters to choose from, but there is only one system that is consistently customer rated 5 stars as the #1 system for effective filtration of fluoride, radiation, drug residues, heavy metals, a wide range of radioisotopes, and more. Introducing the Pure Effect Ultra, the next generation water filter that also raises alkaline pH, improves antioxidant potential, and has advanced anti-radiation technology, all while using no electricity. Sold worldwide, it provides virtually instant clean water on demand. It is not made in China, and the shipping is free to all 50 states. Buy your Pure Effect Ultra today by visiting pureeffectfilters.com or call 888-891-4821. Again, that's 888-891-4821 or visit pureeffectfilters.com.
Welcome back, folks. This is your host, James Kelso, on the American Freedom Party Report. Our guest is Don Deon, who's been so gracious as to give us 2 hours of his time, coming to us live from Ireland. Don, I want to just do a little bit of housekeeping for a moment here, lest I forget a few things.
Okay.
We are building, ladies and gentlemen, such a tremendous alternative media, and we are gathering together. We are bringing some unity to so many different patriotic efforts that there is a lot of housekeeping that has to be done, a lot of connecting. I want to send a thank you out to Karen, who is a South African who has been on this show. I hope to have Karen on again in the near future. She has brought us these incredible guests from South Africa. And I have in front of me the books of Stephen Mitford Goodson, which we have promoted on this show. The latest one I received is Inside the South African Reserve Bank, Its Origins and Secrets Exposed, a wonderful book. I wish I had time to give all the details on how to acquire these things. I hope to make our website, the American Freedom Party, theamericanfreedomparty.us. I hope to make that a sort of a clearinghouse where you'll be able to find all of this information, and I only will have to refer to it. I have in my hand Kewan Elgin's book, Bulala. Bulala, let me look at that other Zulu word here. I'm learning, I'm being educated, Don. Bulala Tagati, which means kill the wizard. that means kill us, you need to get a copy of Bulala Tagadi. And I'll just very quickly mention you can get it by sending an email to stm@mounet.com, mounet.com, stm@mounet.com. Just mention the word Bulala, and you'll get a PayPal invoice. As soon as you pay that, Robert Balakaias, who was the editor for Bulala, will send you a copy from Mountain City, Tennessee. I have also in my hands here a great book, America's Racial Powder Keg, by Victor Thorne. And we had Victor Thorne, and also on this show was Pete Papa Heracles. America's Racial Powder Keg, published by American Free Press. You want to get a copy of this book, and we are distributing this on our website. I have also just arrived in my hands the latest American Free Press, a tremendous patriot newspaper here in the U.S. You want to subscribe to American Free Press. I can only mention these things. I want to give you the details on how to do it. But you're such smart people out there, you'll figure it out. I've got in my hands the latest issue of the Occidental Quarterly. It's the best quarterly in the world. You want to get your hands on this, please subscribe to the Occidental Quarterly, which you can find at toqonline.something. I forgot what it is. But toqonline.com will, at least through a redirect, will take you to the Occidental Quarterly. The best webzine online is the OccidentalObserver.net, published by its editor, Dr. Kevin McDonald, who I am so privileged to be a fellow director on the board of directors of the American Freedom Party. More thank yous we'll go out here, but now another bit of housekeeping. Our guests from South Africa have been so extraordinary, I have not been able to take phone calls. I've been so engaged with what they've been saying. And let me tell you, Don, what's your, there's a famous saying, this is not a drill or this is not a rehearsal. Folks, this is the real world. White people are dying in South Africa right now. Little children, I think of my 3-year-old son, and I imagine, Don, with tears in my eyes, I imagine what it would be like to have a 3-year-old child living in one of those squatter camps. This is horrible.
That's still the nice side of it. Imagine taking your child, in fact, a case we had the other day, where a mother with a 3-month-old baby was trying to get the baby into the hospital just to get it onto a drip because the baby was getting sick all the time, wasn't keeping any waters down or any hydration. And none of the hospitals would accept this woman. And eventually the baby died. There's daily occurrences of people dying in our hospitals through neglect or abuse or pure racism because they're white. That is the farm murders are the tip of the iceberg as far as genocide in South Africa is concerned.
Yeah. Now, folks, what we're going to do is open the phone lines, and please bear in mind, our guests are South Africans, and they are under more pressure and more danger than any other white people in the world. So frame your questions accordingly. Don't give a speech. We want to hear about what's happening to our South African cousins. If you can, frame a question for Don Deon. Now, I'm just going to give the phone number out now. It's area code 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. And I apologize for not giving out that number at the beginning of the show. So if we don't get too many calls, Don, it's my fault entirely. 800-313-9443. Call in now. We have a little less than half an hour left in the program, so we can probably get a couple calls in. Oh, bingo. There's a call. Tom in Florida, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, James. Happy Easter to you and all my white my brother Christians, and even ones that are Christians who ain't white, or who do believe in the Son of Jesus Christ. But James, I would like to talk to you about this. Yes, I'm listening to the gentleman speaking and you speaking right now. I got an idea. How come we don't bring a lot of those South Africans to the United States? Let's all bring them here to this country. Let's bring them to South Florida or Atlanta, or I'll tell you a place would be great to bring over maybe all those South African whites would be Detroit, Michigan.
Tom, great question. Let's listen to
Absolutely, yeah. It's
John's
a
answer.
fantastic question. I'm very glad you asked that. If you go to the website sky.co.za, I have actually addressed that. And there are people, in fact, I know of people as we speak that are wanting to claim asylum in America, but white people are not given asylum. Apart from the fact that the ANC, the black ANC government, intercedes in asylum claims throughout the world wherever they take place and tells them that they're not valid. It is very, very difficult for these people to leave South Africa. They're trapped there. And remember, we're talking about a communist country. Communist needs walls. It needs to keep its people in. Otherwise, it'll be an empty country. Look at Cuba. People couldn't leave Cuba because it's a communist country. So, absolutely, people would love to come there. And South Africans generally have got a very, very good reputation as far as work ethic is concerned. We're known as hard-working, honest people because that is our upbringing. A lot of us do have a Calvinistic upbringing. But the governments of the world, which are all leftist governments, even if they call themselves right-wing, or the biggest irony of all is in France where Sarkozy calls himself centre-right, yet he's probably the most liberal government I've ever come across. So yes, the American government is a problem, but there's also institutional problems where the aid organizations in America, they find it a lot easier, because remember, aid is being outsourced by the government to private companies. These private companies need to make a profit. So the more asylum seekers they can process, the quicker, the better for them. And for them to process a black asylum seeker from South Africa is a slam dunk. Whereas for them to get a white asylum seeker from South Africa is a big problem. So that really does need to be addressed. And we need to get your congressmen, etc., asking questions. Why are white South Africans not being allowed into the country when, statistically speaking, white farmers in South Africa is the most dangerous occupation in the world? Just to give you the statistics, for the average country, the average citizen, the deaths by murder are 6 in 100,000. For a policeman in South Africa, this is any policeman in South Africa, the deaths are 35 per 100,000. For a white farmer in South Africa, it's 133 per 100,000, which is the worst, most dangerous occupation in the world by any standard. And yet, South Africa is considered a safe country as far as asylum-seeking claims is concerned.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, all 5 criteria for genocide are now being met in South Africa.
Absolutely, and absolutely, any country that says, yes, please, bring the South Africans, they will be rewarded with a few million hard-working, honest people.
Yes. Folks, if you had the real estate, you could found a new country overnight if it were possible. For those, you could plant those South Africans anywhere, and you would have an instant paradise.
Yeah.
And instant.
That is an easy thing to say, but remember, a lot of these people, I mean, we've been there for 400 years. It's you don't just want to leave your country.
Oh no, yeah, I exactly, and I mean to say that and we don't know. I don't know. I talked to Don about it. We talked with Q and Elgin about it. What is the best strategy for the millions of whites who want to and should have their own country, the southern tip of Africa? How can they best do this? And
it is a tricky thing, because what's taking place in South Africa is what the ANC calls transformation, where they're actually doing social engineering. They're moving people around the country to change the voting numbers. So, for instance, in the west of the country, where there was generally a higher population of white people or Afrikaans speakers, they have through the decades been busing people from the west of the country through to there, and that is where all these large squatter camps outside Cape Town come from. It's from millions of people being bussed in on promises of work, whatever the case may be, and just being dumped outside the large city. Now those people then obviously become voters, and that affects what's happening there. When I left South Africa in 1997, the blacks in the Cape were a minority, and now they're a majority. So they've got this thing called representativity. Once again, as I said, we need the international review to look at these funny things that the ANC are up to. Now, representativity means that all parts of society must reflect the racial makeup of that country. So in South Africa, 90% of the population is black. Therefore, what they're saying is every single institution, every single company, country, school, whatever, must be 90% black. Which is obviously if you look at it, it's just a stupid, ridiculous thing. And yet that is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're being allowed to do it because nobody's questioning it. There's this joke about beating the apartheid horse. Now, you know the old joke about beating a dead horse.
Yes.
So basically what they're doing is they're beating this apartheid horse every time anybody dares to question them. Anytime there's a threat of review or people questioning them, they just say, well, apartheid, and everybody shuts up and walks away, leaves them to do what they want to do.
Right. TJ, and thank you, Tom, for that question. TJ in Georgia, what's your question?
Thank you for taking my call. I would like to ask, what, if any, pre-post-apartheid restrictive gun laws on the South African citizens have had an effect on setting up this genocide?
Massive, absolutely massive. It's a key element. In fact, we found documents from the ANC prior to 1994 in which disarming the farmers or the Boers was one of the stated aims. And after the ANC government came into force, they banned the commando forces. Now, commando forces are traditional Boer protection forces, civilian protection forces. Which
the militia here.
Had, yeah, and they have been banned and outlawed, which means all the people out on the farms in the country are entirely dependent on the state for their own security. And then they brought in new gun laws. They had a amnesty in the very early days as well, in which people were asked to come and bring in their guns. And unfortunately, the people are very obedient people, and they want to obey the law, and far too many people actually went and gave in their guns, only to find out afterwards that they didn't have to, and a lot of people regret it now. So yes, it's a process which the communists have done in many countries. I mean, all the countries in Africa, as they've moved southwards, it's a process that's taken place. It's a tried and proven method. Now, I think for you guys in America, the key is to find similarities where are these things taking place, which have got parallels of what's happening in South Africa. And I think you can see with the gun laws already, there's a big controversy with it in America about disarming the civilians.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Okay. TJ, thank you for joining our audience. That's a very key question. Thank you, sir.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And please call in again. Let me give the call-in number, folks. We only have a few minutes left in the show for our extraordinary guest, Don Deon, South African patriot who's coming to us live from Ireland. His present location. Our call-in number is 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Don, I'm just trying to think here. I tell you, my mind is spinning with all that I am learning. I'm a pretty well-informed patriot, and I read. I have all these publications that not many people get, and I have a patriot library far more extensive than most people have. But I am being educated by you and by the guests that we've had in the last 2 months from South Africa. It's just like you said yourself. It's real world. What's happening in South Africa is a real world experience on the ground at the salt mine, and there's so much that can be learned from there. And it's happening to us as well daily. We're taking in people that are on the streets with our InSpan NPO. Now, we learn very quickly why the people are there, how they got there, and so often we find people that their only thing that they want to do is get a job with a big multinational again so they can get their credibility back. And time again, we've helped people, and as soon as we get them on their feet, the first thing they want to do is to go and find a salary again, knowing, to get back into the system, especially in South Africa with the affirmative action laws, that it's not going to work. So the aim with the InSpan Trust is to
get people and reskill them, give them skills that they can be self-sufficient, that they can do anywhere in the country that's not geographically dependent. So we're setting up centers throughout South Africa and all the various places where we can assemble the people, get them to recover from their experience. Obviously, just by being assembled together, there's already a built-in protection and self-defense taking place, and then to teach them and reskill them with skills that they can use and be self-sufficient. And then at some stage when they can move, we try and move them towards the west of the country, where hopefully at some stage we can secede or claim some kind of independence. And that's generally the strategy.
Now, folks, I want to give Don Deon a chance to tell you how you can help his work. I'm on one of his websites now, safa.net. That's spelled SAFFA.net. I want you to go there. Don, we're out of time. Thank you. Please come back to our show in the future.
Absolutely. Guys, if you can see through the mist of propaganda, you must get up and fight.
Thank you, sir. See you all next week.
Thank you, guys.
How did a country founded on freedom and limited government end up with the largest, most intrusive government in world history? The process has been ongoing for a long time, and it won't change as long as the Democrat and Republican parties continue to dominate the political system in the United States. It's time to face some unpleasant facts. Americans used to say, it can't happen here. Well, it can, and it has. America has become unrecognizable. We are living in a dark era where not only freedom is under direct attack, but even truth. The institutions of power and control have essentially merged into one giant organism, one that does not trust or believe in the American people. It's time to break up the Democrat-Republican death grip on power and return America to Americans. It's time to regain our freedom by supporting the American Freedom Party. The American Freedom Party represents the American people and will return our nation to greatness. You can be part of the solution by joining the American Freedom Party for just $25. Send your $25 membership to the American Freedom Party, 9811 West Charleston Boulevard, Suite 2-441, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. Again, that's the American Freedom Party, 9811 West Charleston Boulevard, Suite 2-441, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117.
Recent events have shown just how vulnerable we are to deadly viruses, bacteria, and fungus. These diseases are all caused by infectious pathogens that often get the upper hand on conventional medical treatments. Now more than ever, there's a great need for a product that will help protect us. Look no further. Supernatural Silver can provide immune system support to help fight off these deadly pathogens. Supernatural Silver is a new and vastly improved type of silver solution that's safe and extremely effective against 143 types of bacteria, both forms of viruses, mold, and yeast. Supernatural Silver can be taken orally or used topically and can be used in a nebulizer or vaporizer for inhalation. With over 180 scientific studies by independent universities, hospitals, and research institutions, Supernatural Silver is a powerful weapon against disease. Go to supernaturalsilver.com and use the promo code SILVER2014 for 20% off your entire order. Give you and your loved ones a fighting chance with Supernatural Silver.
Earthquakes, hurricanes, nuclear accidents, terror attacks, and all-out social collapse. With the world today more volatile than ever, the future has never looked more uncertain. Survivalist magazine is the one resource you can't afford to be without. Claim your free trial subscription now at www.survivalist.com, and your first issue ships immediately. Get all the details and more at www.survivalist.com or order by phone. Call 1-866-437-6570. Your survival may depend on it. Earthquakes, hurricanes, nuclear accidents, terror attacks, and all-out social collapse. With the world today more volatile than ever, the future has never looked more uncertain. Survivalist magazine is the one resource you can't afford to be without. Claim your free trial subscription now at www.survivalist.com, and your first issue ships immediately. Get all the details and more at www.survivalist.com or order by phone. Call 1-866-437-6570. Your survival may depend on it.
Happy Easter, everybody. a happy Easter to all of our wonderful listeners, including our listeners in South Africa. And I learned a lot here from you, Don, today, that many of our listeners in South Africa are listening on mobile devices. And so we need to make sure, I'll check with our system administrator to make sure that we have a very easily accessible mobile device signal going out there.
Yeah, you need, it's called a responsive site. You need to have a responsive site.
Okay, see, we need to hire you as a consultant, a responsive site. You're just educating me. We just have a few minutes left, folks, and your embarrassed host, I signed off a couple of minutes ago, demonstrating that this is live radio and it is not a rehearsal. We have a little bit of time left, and I want to spend this entire time telling you how you can help Don Deon. And I was very happy to learn from Don during the break that he will be back soon on this show. Don, give the two websites you'd like people to go to and to help you.
Okay, James, thanks very much. Firstly is the sky.co.za, sky.co.za, which is a news site in which the byline for the site is challenging news, i.e. we challenge the news of the day that the leftist biased mainstream media puts out, and also we put out news that challenges people to think the traditional thought patterns that they're given by the mass media. So if you go there, you'll see a lot of interesting articles which could appear controversial, but that is the truth. And it is to get people to discuss the things. And also, there's a lot of lies that have been told in the international world about what happened in South Africa from before the end of apartheid. The whole apartheid thing is just one big construction, one big lie. In fact, apartheid was designed to give 12 different nations each their own country. That really is the bottom line of what it was. It was self-determination for 12 different tribes. What is wrong with that? Unfortunately, the communists don't like that because it is against the communist agenda of a centrist state of a one-world country. So yes, now...
And your other site? The other
site is saffa.net, 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 which is to try and get the people abroad, the diaspora of South Africans, the million South Africans that have left, to try and get them together to help the South Africans back home. We've got various initiatives that we've set up to try and help the people that are stuck there, to get them out of the trap that they're in, working for multinationals in enslavement, trapped in the system that is against them from the word go, that is killing them on a daily basis, that is leaving them exposed to crime like you cannot believe, the murder and crime capital of the world. To get them out of their societies, to get them to assemble together in premises around the world, around the country, where they can look after each other, etc.
Don, thank you so much. I can't wait to have you back on this show. See you next week.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you.
With financial uncertainty